Hey everyone. Um, Before I say anything else, I need you to think about someone specific right now. Think about someone who treated you like you were disposable, someone who played games, someone who made you feel like you didn't matter, someone who thought they could treat you however they wanted without any consequences. Got them in mind? Welcome back. It's Anna. And today I want to talk about something that a lot of people experience, but very few people talk about out loud. That moment, that specific moment, when someone who underestimated you finally starts to realize they made a mistake. They're coming back correct. They finally realize you're not one to play with. And I want to explore with you what that actually feels like from the inside and what it means for where you are right now. Let me start by talking about what might have led to this point. You may have been in a situation recently, or maybe it's been going on for a while, where someone treated you like your feelings didn't matter, like your boundaries were suggestions, like your time and your energy and your worth were things they could just take without asking. Some people experience this as a slow erosion. It doesn't happen all at once. It happens in small moments. A comment here, an action there, a pattern that builds so gradually that by the time you realize what's happening, you've already given away more of yourself than you intended. It might feel like you're sitting somewhere, maybe replaying a conversation in your head, and suddenly you see it clearly. See how much you've been tolerating. See how much you've been excusing. See the gap between how someone has been treating you and how you actually deserve to be treated. Let's pause for a moment because this part is important. This reflection invites you to consider what moment made you realize that someone's treatment of you was genuinely unacceptable. You may have had a turning point, a specific moment where something shifted inside you, where the patience you'd been extending suddenly ran out, where the benefit of the doubt you'd been giving suddenly felt like self-betrayal. It's possible that moment felt quiet, not dramatic, not a big confrontation, just an internal click, a decision made somewhere deep inside you that said no more. Some people experience this as a strange calm, like the storm that's been raging inside them suddenly goes quiet. And in that quiet, they find clarity, real clarity, the kind that doesn't waver. And that calm, that clarity, that's what changes everything. This is important because what happens next, the way you start showing up, the way you start carrying yourself, it all comes from that moment of internal decision. This reflection invites you to consider, when did you make that quiet decision inside yourself to stop accepting less than you deserve? Let me talk about what that internal shift actually looks like from the outside. It's possible you started setting boundaries you never set before. Not aggressively, not dramatically, just clearly, firmly, without apology. Some people notice that their whole energy changes when they stop tolerating mistreatment. They walk differently, they talk differently, they respond to situations differently, not because they're performing confidence, but because something genuine has shifted in how they see themselves. You may have started saying no more easily, stopped over-explaining yourself, stopped trying to make someone comfortable at the expense of your own peace, stopped reaching out first to someone who never reached back. And people noticed, not just the person who was treating you badly, but everyone around you. Something changed in how you carry yourself, and it's visible. It can feel like you're going about your day and you catch yourself not caring about something you used to obsess over, not checking your phone for messages from someone who never replied consistently, not adjusting your behavior to accommodate someone who never accommodated you. That shift in behavior, That's not petty. That's healthy. That's you finally aligning your actions with your actual worth. This reflection invites you to consider, what behaviors have you changed recently that reflect a new understanding of what you deserve? Now, let me talk about what might be happening on their end. It's possible, and this is something some people experience in these dynamics, that when you stop playing along, when you stop being available on their terms, when you stop treating their games like they're acceptable, something shifts for them too. Some people don't realize what they have until the dynamic changes. They don't register how much someone was giving them until that giving stops. They don't appreciate the presence until the presence withdraws. It's possible this person is currently noticing your absence, not just physical absence maybe, but emotional absence, the absence of your effort, your patience, your willingness to meet them halfway. And that absence might be uncomfortable for them because they got used to you being available. They got used to you trying. They got used to being able to count on your patience even when they didn't deserve it. You may have no way of knowing exactly what they're feeling right now. And honestly, that's not the point. The point is what you are feeling, what you are experiencing, what you are learning about yourself through this process. This reflection invites you to consider, how does it feel to stop investing in someone who wasn't investing in you? Let me talk about something that might be coming up emotionally for you right now. It's possible you're feeling a complicated mix of things. Relief, maybe, because the constant tension of trying to make something work that wasn't working is finally over. Anger, maybe, because you're recognizing how long you put up with something you shouldn't have. Sadness, maybe, because you genuinely cared about this person, and caring about someone who doesn't care back is one of the loneliest feelings in the world. Some people experience all of these at once and it feels overwhelming. Like there are too many emotions happening simultaneously to process any single one of them properly. You may be having moments where you're fine and then suddenly you're not, where you go about your day feeling strong and then something triggers a wave of feeling that knocks you sideways. That's normal. That's what happens when you start to truly process something you've been pushing down for a long time. This reflection invites you to consider what emotions are currently showing up for you around this situation that you haven't fully let yourself feel. It might help to just sit with them, not analyze them, not judge them, just let them move through you the way feelings need to move through to be processed. There's something about power that's important to talk about here. It's possible you're currently in a position you weren't in before, a position where you're the one who holds the cards, where someone who used to have all the power in the dynamic is now realizing that power has shifted. Some people experience this shift as disorienting at first. They're so used to being the one who's trying, the one who's reaching, the one who's hoping, that suddenly being the one who's being pursued or sought or valued feels unfamiliar. You may not be used to this feeling, the feeling of someone wanting your attention instead of you wanting theirs, the feeling of someone noticing your absence instead of you noticing theirs. But it's possible that's exactly where you are right now, and it might feel strange, but it's not wrong. This reflection invites you to consider, how does it feel to be in a position of power in a dynamic where you used to feel powerless? Let me slow down here because I want to talk about something that a lot of people get wrong in this situation. When someone starts to realize they messed up, when they start coming back, correct? There's often a temptation to feel vindicated, to feel like you won, to feel satisfaction at their discomfort. And honestly, Some satisfaction is natural. It's human. When someone treated you badly and they're now experiencing the consequences of that treatment, feeling good about it doesn't make you a bad person. But some people experience this vindication as toxic if they hold on to it too long. If it becomes their primary motivation, if they start making decisions based on wanting to see someone suffer rather than based on what's actually good for them, you may need to check in with yourself about where you are with this. Is your energy right now coming from a place of genuine self-worth, or is it coming from a place of wanting to prove something to someone? Both are understandable, but only one of them actually serves you long term. This reflection invites you to consider, is your current behavior driven by self-respect or by the need to be proven, right? There's a difference, and it matters because self-respect is sustainable. It carries you forward. The need to prove yourself to someone keeps you connected to them in a way that doesn't actually free you. Let me talk about what coming back correct actually means in real life. It's possible this person is currently trying to show up differently. Maybe they're reaching out more. Maybe they're being more respectful. Maybe they're actually listening when you talk. Maybe they're making effort they never made before. Some people experience this as confusing because it's so different from the pattern they got used to. They don't trust it. They wonder if it's genuine or if it's just another manipulation. They wonder if the person will go back to their old ways once they feel secure again. And those doubts, they're healthy. They're protective. They're the result of having been burned before. You may need to watch for consistency rather than grand gestures. It's possible someone can say all the right things in a moment of regret, but whether they actually sustain different behavior over time, that's what reveals whether the change is real. This reflection invites you to consider, what would genuine change actually look like from this person? Not words, but actions over time. It might be worth writing that down, actually. Getting clear on what you'd need to see consistently before you trust that something has actually shifted. Having a standard before the emotions of the moment cloud your judgment. There's something about your worth that needs to be said clearly. It's possible you spent a long time in this dynamic questioning whether you were enough, whether you were too much, whether something about you was the reason this person treated you the way they did. But here's what some people discover when they finally step back from a dynamic like this. The problem was never them. The problem was the other person's inability to recognize value when it was right in front of them. You didn't need to change. You didn't need to be more. You didn't need to fix yourself to deserve decent treatment. You deserved it from the beginning. And the fact that this person is now realizing that, it doesn't retroactively make their past behavior okay, but it might confirm something you needed to hear, that yes, you were worth it all along. They just couldn't see it until they almost lost it. Some people find this validating, others find it infuriating. Both responses are completely valid. This reflection invites you to consider, what does this shift in their behavior confirm for you about your own worth? Let me talk about what you should actually do with all of this. It's possible you're at a decision point. They're coming back different. They're showing up more. They're treating you with more respect. And you have to decide, do you give them another chance? Do you maintain your distance? Do you find some middle ground? And there's no universal right answer to that. It depends on your situation, on the severity of how they treated you before, on whether you actually want them in your life, on whether their change feels genuine or performative. Some people in your position would say yes immediately. The relief of having someone come back correct would be enough. Others would say no, the damage is done and no amount of correction can undo it. Others would say maybe, but with conditions, real conditions. not the kind that dissolve the moment things feel comfortable again. You may not know yet which category you fall into, and that's okay. You don't have to decide today. This reflection invites you to consider, what do you actually want for yourself in this situation? Not what you think you should want. What you genuinely want. There's something about protecting yourself going forward that I want to address. It's possible that regardless of what you decide, you need to be more protective of yourself than you were before. Not closed off, not suspicious of everyone, just aware of patterns, aware of red flags, aware of the difference between someone who's genuinely showing up and someone who's performing showing up until they feel safe enough to go back to old habits. Some people learn this lesson the hard way. They give second chances without conditions and end up in the exact same painful dynamic all over again. You may need to be honest with yourself about whether you're willing to risk that. Whether the possibility of things being different is worth the possibility of being hurt the same way again. And only you can answer that. This reflection invites you to consider, what boundaries do you need to have in place before you let anyone back in after they've shown you who they are? You remain in complete control of what happens next here. No one gets to decide that for you. Not this person, not your friends. Not society's expectations about forgiveness or second chances or being the bigger person. This is your choice, made from your values, based on your experience, guided by your own wisdom about what you need. The power is yours. It always has been. You may notice that reading this has brought up a lot, maybe memories, maybe emotions, maybe clarity you didn't have before. Maybe more questions than answers. All of that is okay. Processing takes time. Take what resonates. Discard what doesn't. Trust what you know in your gut about this situation. Before we close, I want to ask you something directly. Has someone recently started treating you differently after a period of treating you badly? What did that shift feel like? Drop it in the comments, because I think a lot of people are going through this exact thing right now, and sometimes hearing other people's experiences helps. And this, if someone came back correct after playing games with you, what would you need to see from them before you'd actually trust it? What would real change look like? Not words. Real, consistent change. They're coming back, correct? Maybe. It's possible. Some people do genuinely wake up when they realize what they almost lost. They finally realize you're not one to play with. It's possible that's happening right now. But here's what matters most. None of that changes what you already know about yourself. You were never the problem. You were never not enough. You were never someone who needed to be played with or tested or taken for granted. You knew that before they figured it out. And you'll know it long after this situation resolves itself one way or another. Trust yourself with this. Trust that you don't need someone's correction to confirm your worth. Trust that setting boundaries isn't mean, it's necessary. Trust that you deserve someone who shows up correctly from the start, not someone who only figures it out after you stop tolerating their nonsense. You don't need to wait for anyone to come correct. You already know what you deserve. I'll see you in the next one. And listen, whether they come back or they don't, whether they change or they don't. Your life moves forward. Your worth stays the same. Your peace is not dependent on their decisions. Live accordingly.